frustration. We saw that the way in which financial really insights and the way in which you could get guidance around your money based off of where you worked in a company that you were affiliated with, that dictated who you had the opportunity to have conversations with. So essentially, if you didn't have money, you didn't have the opportunity to sit down with a professional to give you guidance. And we didn't like that. I knew my immediate market, essentially, you know, I'm Jamaican by blood, 95% of my family's overseas. We grew up in Florida. So means were something that we didn't necessarily have access to right off the bat. It was more so based off of sweat equity. But also when it came to the information that really every tax bracket should have access to, we saw the void of not even being able to have a conversation with quality people. So our company was literally birthed to sit down with someone that's not necessarily based off of compensation, more so based off of their character and what they're looking to get accomplished. And we grow with them based off of their life events and their successes in life. And so we've been rocking and rolling for about 4 years now. I've been in the industry for about 8 years. We're actually located in downtown Inslee.
Right. Well, great. That's good. I like what you all are doing over there in Inslee. Some other like-minded business owners are moving into that area and, you know, just kind of taking revitalization and community improvement into your own hands. So definitely want to salute you all for doing that. And, you know, so many people, so many myths about financial planning, and folks from, you know, our community a lot of times, all types of communities really, just don't think that it's for them. Like who needs to utilize financial planning? Who is it for?
Yeah, so there's typically a spectrum of steps. Usually it starts at financial literacy. So we've been hearing a lot of conversation around financial literacy, which is the basic information around finances and money management. Once you get to financial literacy, then you have financial wellness. That is more so your relationship with money, right? Like whenever you think about money, what emotions come to mind and what thoughts come to mind? And that's usually a track record of your parents' relationship with money. After you get to financial wellness, then you have financial coaching. That's where you hear the Susie Ormans, the Dave Ramseys, where they're giving you some guidance on how to make certain decisions, but they may not necessarily know your specific plan. After financial coaching, then the next step of that is financial planning, right? That means that you have some type of earned income. You're able to set aside money to start saving on a month-to-month basis. There may be some that you've been able to acquire if it's a piece of property, if you're able to get approved for purchasing a house, all the way to getting some consultation around your 401k. So that means that there's some assets there. After financial planning, there's financial advising. After financial advising, there's what. So it's all on the same spectrum. Mm-hmm. The way in which the financial industry has been built historically, the professionals have been slated to only speak to those that are at the financial advising level, right? So that's usually based off of income or usually based off of how much money they can invest that day. I believe personally, and this is why we launched IMC, financial planning has less to do with income, but more to do with intentionality. Are you looking to be intentional with the money that you're bringing in on a month-to-month basis? And then how can we segment your dollars that are aligned towards your goals and objectives over a 3-month period, over a 3-year period, over a 10-year period? So I wouldn't see financial planning that is only tied to an income threshold. I would more so tie it to your ability to be able to describe what you see for the future and have enough discretionary income, pretty much whatever you have bringing in on a month-to-month basis, whatever you have going out. And then if there is enough money to start describing the future you see for yourself, now we're talking about planning for the future financially.
Yeah, I like the way you lay that out because it makes it accessible and it shows, like you said, that it is a process. I know you're about the process and about planning. You know, we definitely want to, when we post this video, we'll be sure to include all your website, your contact information, your social media, so folks can follow you on that. At the beginning of this interview, you mentioned the pandemic that's occurring right now, this crisis that we're under. Yesterday, the city of Birmingham issued a shelter-in-place ordinance that basically puts restrictions on when folks can leave their home, trying to flatten the curve, so to speak, and to reduce the rate at which this virus is spreading so that we can have a fighting chance really to reduce the number of folks that are negatively impacted by it from a health perspective and certainly from reduce the number of fatalities. as well. This is something that's happening obviously globally, you know, and then here in the United States, over half of the states, or 30 states, have issued a shelter in place for statewide, or at least a portion of the state, like we have here. So for business owners and individuals, this is a disruption in the market. Of course, it's much more than that. But we're going to have another person on to speak about the health aspects. But for you, we certainly want to leverage the expertise that you have, and just generally for individuals, whether they be working in the service industry, you know, like you stated in your article that was recently posted on AL.com, so many people are just living check to check, you know, even before a disruption like this happens. So what can you say to them? You know, obviously we got to stay prayed up and have faith, but what else can folks do to try to navigate through this type of disruption?
Yeah, it's a great question. So post-pandemic, post-Rona, there's two perspectives. We have one perspective in which if your income was disrupted, right? So there's some folks where they immediately lost income, if they're an hourly employee. My immediate words to them is, one, be vulnerable, right? Share the needs in which you may have for your family or kids or whoever it may be, because the community is there to wrap their arms around you. So please do that. And there's also additional resources on not only financial coaching, but also some possible job opportunities to immediately replace it, even though we got to practice social distancing. So with the group of individuals that lost income, you know, there's a phrase that's just really in repetition that I'm thinking about. Chaotic times are an incubator for creativity. And so even if you lost your income, leverage this moment, because ultimately AT&T, I believe it was March 14th, they said that if you are in the window of being disconnected, they're going to give you 60 days. Birmingham Waterworks, I'm pretty sure they opened up a 60-day window, or they extended the time frame. So even for the folks locally, there are certain mandatory expenses that you now have 60 days to birth a vision, right? That's not necessarily tied to the income that you have prior to. So it's really paramount for you to be extremely creative. So that's one side. The other side is the individuals that still have income coming in, and their biggest adjustment is really working from the house and all the virtual responsibilities that they have to attend to. This is actually the perfect time to identify the right amount of expenses that you want coming out on a month-to-month basis. And before you start making decisions about what you need to do moving forward, this is the perfect time to look at what you've done previous. One of the reasons why it takes us time to be able to build a financial roadmap for our clients is it's the time it takes for them to slow down and think. It's less about what we have for them. It's more about what they see for themselves. We just put numbers to it. Right? And makes sense. So within this, knowing that your income is continuing, knowing that you know, it won't be disrupted, this is the best time to get a really solid understanding of your finances, what it's been over the last 90 days. And then, okay, coming out of the Rona, post-Rona, how do we want to continue to navigate our finances, considering our major objectives moving forward? You know, we know, I believe we're pretty close, if not already, that the government is going to pass an additional stimulus for, you know, individuals that make less than, I believe, $99,000 as individuals, $150,000 as married couples. So $1,200 per individual, $2,400 per couple, and I believe it's at a $200,000 amount with the couple as well. So with that being said, that's money in which you may not have anticipated that you can allocate towards the future of your household moving forward. And so we say this all the time: if you don't have a game plan for your money, you need your money is going to have a game plan for you, right? And so it's going to tell you what it wants real quick.
That's true. That is so true. That is so true. And there's some very valuable and helpful information. And I think that, you know, individuals navigating through this type of scenario, you know, can really put that into play. It's practical, can be applied right away. What information, or what general information would you put out there for small businesses, entrepreneurs? How would you, just in terms of their spending, or just what type of changes in behavior, how can they, you know, take advantage of this opportunity that we have right now?
Yeah, I think specifically for our business owners, this is probably the biggest opportunity for them to see how their business survives in a moment in which they have to stay stationary. Can your business operate if you're in one location, right? If you don't have brick and mortar, or if you're limited to technology, how does your process still stay in place, right? Even the accountability of your organization as well as documentation. Can you take someone from a prospect to a client without touching a sheet of paper? This is what's being challenged right now. Also, is your business model agnostic to change? This is a drastic change to the economy. And so your business really should be right now to show if your business can survive regardless of the season that it's in. So immediately what I would recommend to all of the business owners is to really take a true post test of, all right, this is the overhead that I have on a month-to-month basis. Do I need it, right? As of right now, everyone is really asking that question. Is this a mandatory expense?
Right.
Is this expense necessary? You know?
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is, and again, based off of the status of your business, if you have employees, if you had to shut down and immediately eliminate operations and services, then you want to look into, all right, what is it going to take to be able to maintain the business considering the limitations of your business from a finances standpoint? Businesses all across the globe have now been challenged on how much cash do you have? How much cash do you have on hand, or how much cash do you have access to at the bank? Once that runs out, what's next, right? And so everyone is actually going through the sequence of thoughts of staying lean, but still staying productive. It's just with the smaller business owners and newer businesses, we haven't necessarily had the grace to be able to develop either the relationships to have access to capital, or even the existence of the business, right? The tenure of the business to be able to go to the bank and show completed tax returns and things of that nature. So I think immediately it's just looking at the expenses that you have and see how you can dial back. Reach out to if you do have brick and mortar, let them know how COVID has impacted your expenses, to see if there's any grace on credit cards, on any utilities or any bills that you may have outstanding. And then again, be proactive in this stance. That's really being reactive. Still have a proactive stance and identify the ways in which you can either revise your business or reignite your business that operate way in which technology has forced us to.
Definitely. That's great information. And I got about one more question for you, and then we're going to close. But before I get to that one question, you're meeting with clients, you're taking on new clients now, and you kind of adapted, you're doing a virtual model. Is that right?
Yeah. So man, what's unique, 4 years ago when we started our practice, we wanted to make sure that we could meet with anybody regardless of where they were.
Mm-hmm.
So about 60% of our meetings prior to coronavirus was virtual.
Okay.
So this is actually a normal operation for us. And so yeah, we're still bringing on new clients all across the country, regardless of where you are. And of course, our initial consultation is at no cost. So there's no fee for that. So we will never turn down a conversation. And so of course we'll leave our contact info so you can get a hold of us.
Definitely. Yeah, we'll be sure to post that in the comments. And just as a question I'd like to ask you is that, for me, I work as an attorney, a public interest attorney. I do a lot of community work. And so, when I see these type of crises and I'm kind of study history a little bit, I understand that, like you said, it's an incubator for creativity. And it's sometimes gives you that courage that you need to address systemic issues in a way that we haven't. And our federal government right now is injecting a lot of money into the economy, $2 trillion. I think that stimulus bill, which is maybe unprecedented as far as in recent history, and not before, obviously, either. But a portion of it is going back into the financial markets, and I understand the role of the financial markets, but I think sometimes we lose our way, and we get caught up on patting ourselves on the back and making profit for other investors and not understanding certain professions have a certain responsibility. It's an institution in society. And so what would you say to our elected officials in terms of making sure that the money that is injected into the economy gets to the people, the people on Main Street, everyday folks? What would you say to them in that regard?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. You see, I couldn't even contain my smile as you were asking it, because as we saw, the initial reaction of the government was really for those that have assets. So unless you have assets, that didn't impact you. The federal interest rate dropping, unless you have property or some type of asset to where you're leveraging to get loan or whatever it may be, that doesn't necessarily impact the working individual.
Right.
Them making adjustment on the taxes around wages, that's more so for the employer, right? And then as well for any employees that they have as well. So I think when I see what has manifested, it shows that the proximity to the people has not been close enough, because the initial reaction of the government was more so it was a top level. Now I understand that there is a trickle down effect. I understand there is a sequence of things, but the issues that they're dealing with, working and to where 78 to 80% of workers have been living on paycheck to paycheck before the coronavirus, that was already an issue. We can literally go back 400 years to establish some of the economic hurdles specifically on African Americans that have yet to be addressed, that now they see a magnified version of the result of it, right? And that's why the stimulus is providing on what it needs. So if anything, I would make sure that when they think about the community, they include every tax bracket, right? And so if you prioritize the voice of the community, we understand that, companies provide jobs, right? And with those jobs, those individuals are able to, purchase property and support other local businesses. But also those individuals have a voice as well. And I think this is the first time the government has been able to see the trickle down effect live. Usually people are representing different pockets of it because they're proximate to that area. But now with this being a pandemic and it being, it doesn't matter if you had property, because like 08, 09, it was more so the housing crisis. With this, it doesn't matter if you have assets or not, you're at risk, right? And so hopefully this allows the voice of the community in the lower tax brackets to be as loud as the ones in the highest.
Excellent, man. I really do appreciate your time and enjoy the way you break down these issues and make them accessible to everyone. And just any closing thoughts you'd like to share with our viewers and listeners.
Man, I think we touched on a good bit, man. I think the biggest thing at this point is the communication. That's probably, if anything, I'd like to share. This has sparked an increase in communication amongst our community. Let's not lose that spirit, because when we think about prior to integration, that was something that was forced, and we still made things happen. And so even around this situation, regardless of color, let's increase the communication amongst our community so we can make sure that we're operating in the best interest of the people moving forward.
Definitely. Well, thank you again, Isaac. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, your evening with your family. And we appreciate your time as always. We'll be sure to post all your contact information with this interview. And also, I want to provide a link to that op-ed that you wrote for AL.com that was very insightful as well. Thank you for being gracious with your time, and have a good one.
Thank you, brother. Yes, sir. All right, bet.